We are back today with our first ever episode of the CSFL podcast, videocast, kicking off the new league. We're just starting to week 2, and I'm joined today by the Titans GM, Josh. Josh, how is everything going? Slow start for the Titans this year, but you can have some sort of favoritism because you're the first GM to appear on the videocast this year.
Yeah, got to take the good with the bad. I appreciate you having me again, but I would have been a lot happier if I appeared on at 1-1 instead of 0-2. So
yeah. I'm sure you would have traded an 0-2 start for a 2-0 start not to appear on here today, but it is what it is. So I guess before we talk about week 2 and some of the interesting results that have occurred, should we have a chat about our teams and about what direction we're going? And I mean, because I'm really interested in terms of the Titans, because obviously you've made some quite significant moves to start this season off and start the league off, really. And I think it'd be quite interesting for the viewers to get an insight into your planning and your mind and where you want to take the team going forward and your strategy, really, for the Titans.
All right. Well, to start, when I first took over the team, the Titans are actually the football team that I follow. I'm from Alabama, and we don't really have any professional sports. So when I was a kid, they played a lot of Houston Oilers games on the TV. Mm-hmm. So I've always kind of just followed them because they later became the Tennessee Titans. But this is actually one of my, I wouldn't say favorite years of recent history, but this is back when our team actually had a random spurt of greatness because of Kerry Collins, and I might be considering starting him now.
So how does it feel to actually get an opportunity to be a GM of a team you support? Because I mean, for me, the Lions are my team as well. And how does that feel? Is it sort of, are you more into the players? You're more aware of who you like, who you don't like? Have you already sort of got that in your mindset before you've sort of looked at the roster and looked at the stats and the ratings?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it definitely makes you a bit more emotionally invested because I like to think that I'm better than the really, really horrible GM we had back when I was younger and watching the team. No, I actually I believe in some rankings that I've seen that I can't remember his name right now. I'm probably actually woefully blocking it out of my memory, but our GM at the time is considered one of the worst GMs in NFL history. He just squandered many a top pick, and we didn't really have a ton of flaws, and one of them every year was, as a fan, we just kept begging him to get us a number 1 wide receiver. So I told myself the first thing I was going to do when I got this team was get the best receiver on the longest contract I could, and that was Andre Johnson. So that was my first move.
Yeah, and I mean, let's touch on that then, because that's a really interesting point, because I don't necessarily think it was the first trade that went down. You might correct me if you remember, but
no, it wasn't the first one. It was probably like the second or the third.
Yeah, but it's kind of been the trade that everyone seems to have referred back to as just the starting point of market value for this league. You've single-handedly set the price for a top wide receiver and a top player, and I know some GMs are probably cursing you for that. Some people are probably saying that's fantastic because it means that I can get some great value for players who I might not necessarily want. But in terms of what you gave up and what you've got, what went through your mindset in terms of giving away all those picks for the wide receiver that you mentioned?
Well, the first thing I would tell those GMs is that it was a combination of things. It wasn't a frivolous move. I gave up a first and a third, and I believe a third the next year. And those, when he and I did the math together, that came out. We used one of the draft capital charts. It came out to about 1,000 or so points in draft capital, which I think Andre Johnson is worth, to be honest. He's one of the only players in the league with a combination of a 90 agility, 90 speed, and 90 hands at his position.
Yeah.
He doesn't value money as high as some of the other wide receivers that I saw of his caliber. It's like a low 90s. So, I'm actually maybe able to get him back for less than 20 million, which is what, some of my other players are going to be asking for. And, he was on a 4-year contract. 12 million a year seemed very reasonable for a player that's probably worth double that. So, it was a combination of factors. I wouldn't have, traded anything above a 3rd-round pick for anyone that wasn't under the age of 30 with a 4-year contract. That was reasonable. With that combination of statistics, it just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head, really. Obviously, you gave up some considerable draft capital, but when you look at Andre Johnson and you look at his ratings, I mean, it's exceptional, really, isn't it? Speed, hands, agility. He's got a little bit of strength, which is always a bonus. But yeah, he has the makings, and of being a really, really good wide receiver and a great number 1 option for you this year. So obviously you made that trade in terms of bringing in the wide receiver that the Titans, as you said, never had during this era. In terms of the rest of the roster, what are your thoughts in terms of building this? You obviously got your number 1 wide receiver option. What else did you consider in terms of either trying to upgrade or being comfortable with the position the Titans were already in?
Well, if you go and look at my contract situations, most of my higher rated players, most of the ones between a 90 and say low 70s are all, right there at the top. They have 2-3-year contracts, and my really elite players are actually the ones that are on 3 or 4-year contracts. So I wasn't really too upset to give up picks because I have, some guys who, if you look, I'm going to have quite a bit of cap space, and I still have draft picks. And I've kind of looked at the league's upcoming free agents, and it's really deep. So in my mind, keep your really strong guys, add to the top end of your roster, and see what you can build around that. And if it doesn't work, well, in 2 seasons, I have all of my draft picks back. So it's not really that bad.
Yeah, I mean, interesting strategy to go for guys who are already on longer term deals. And as you mentioned, you are absolutely going to have salary to play with this off season. So, I guess trying to build that team, if there's key elements that are missing from this year, you can probably try and address that with some elite players in the off season. In terms of the team now, looking at the offense and the defense, where would you say the main strength lies? Is it on one side of the ball, or is it a certain type of offensive or defensive game? Is if you drill down into that, or are you quite comfortable with both sides?
I think I'm quite comfortable with both sides. I want to get some more speed and tackling on defense, but my offense, I'm actually we have one of the better offensive lines in the game from what I've noticed. 2 of the top tackles in the league, one of the best guards, and our other 3 positions are, above average, I would say. Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, I have 2 up and coming wide receivers, and then the aforementioned Andre Johnson. I have a young up and coming tight end. So, I just wanted to focus on filling holes. So in the next 2 seasons, while I'm going through this process, I'll be at a point where I can start using my draft picks to supplement my team rather than pray for them to all hit every single season and try to rebuild. And, I'm actually, curious at some point to hear about your point of view as well, because you took the other route I considered, which was, selling everything and accumulating as many picks as you can and going from there. So,
yeah, I mean, before we necessarily talk about the Lions and the tragic direction I want to take them in, but just another point really for me. We were talking before we came on air about the quarterback situation for the Titans, and obviously you've got Young and you've got Collins, who are 2 good quarterbacks. For me personally, I wouldn't call them elite quarterbacks, but they're 2 good quarterbacks. Are you comfortable with seeing how it plays out between the 2 of them this year, and looking at playing one possibly on different types of matchups of teams you're playing, or or is that still a position where you still think that, you know, for the Titans to be a team that's challenging for the championship, which is clearly the direction you want to take them over the next 4 years, that they really need to bring in you really need to bring in a top tier quarterback?
I'm not completely there yet, but I'm really considering it. I've started doing testing on, you know, in my own league that I've started, and the closest approximation to Vince Young that I could find, as I was telling you, is Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
And you know, the playbook that I've started creating for our league, I've been using with him as well to, you know, great results. And he actually has less accuracy and less intelligence than Vince does, contrary to our league where Vince has already thrown what looks to be 6 or 7 picks in 2 games. So definitely considering possibly doing a quarterback change, considering, you know, what's that 20% of this, you know, 20 or so percent of the season is gone already, you know, 2 games, and then my quarterback's already probably going to lead the league in interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the interesting thing about football in general, is that there's not many games, so
yeah,
these minute issues obviously become bigger issues quicker than they would do in other sports that you may follow. So yeah, I guess the young question is interesting, because I mean, do you drop him now and give Collins a go and see if it just clicks with him? Or I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what you do in terms of week 3, and we'll get onto the results and things. But for me, looking at the Titans from afar, really, that to me is the big question for you guys. I can see there's talent across the whole roster now, and obviously you've addressed the receiver issue really in terms of a clear number 1 option who is going to occupy defenses and make teams have to game plan against you. But for me, I don't know whether it's down to, like you said, possibly the playbook not clicking, or just the quarterbacks not being at the level that they necessarily need to be for the Titans. But game 3 is going to be really fascinating for you to see what decision you take in terms of that position, really.
I'm gonna have to do something. I just noticed that I finally have a backup running back. Our situation was really, really bad. I think my backup running back's overall is 65, which, you know, overall doesn't really matter, but he just horrid, and I got both of my targets in free agency, so hopefully I can shore that up and be the power running team that I kind of envisioned. Really wanted us to be, you know, a ball control possession team, you know, with Chris Johnson getting any first down that we need, and Andre Johnson being our, you know, big play weapon. But we'll see.
Yeah, and you, especially because you need to take the opportunity of that great offensive line that you kind of talked about earlier on, to really, you know, you've got the guys up front to do the job, so why not make use of it? And, you know, if Johnson can't run the ball because he's tired or injured or whatever it is, then you've got a backup option who can come in and make those plays for you. It's going to be essential. Yeah, so in terms of the Titans, I mean, we've alluded to it, but I'm guessing obviously it's playoffs and championship or bust over the next few years for you guys.
Yeah, no, that was the idea. I saw I had the most athletic quarterback in the league, you know, and that I had a strong offensive line, and I was like, might as well go for it and learn the engine while you actually have a decent team. And, you know, with the restriction that we can't trade our picks 3 years out, that's a good small little window to test things and just see what we can pull off while everyone's still new and still trying to figure out things.
Yeah, very much so. Whilst the league is still in flux, it's a good opportunity to possibly cash in some of those picks for the first couple of years to try some players out and see how it goes, really.
Yeah, and worst comes to worst, I have 690 rated players that can go on the market and collect a lot of picks. So.
Exactly. We'll see how the Titans do. Obviously, it hasn't started very well for you, and we'll talk about that probably a bit later. But I mean, the roster construction is certainly there, in my opinion, and it was definitely a bold move to make the initial moves you have done. So hopefully it pays off for you.
Yeah, no, like I keep telling you, long story short, by the time I'm done paying for this trade, I'll still have all of my big pieces under contract for 2 more years. So it didn't really seem it was a special case. It's not something that I would have recommended that every team had done. So
yeah, and even if this year it doesn't necessarily work, like you said, you'll have guys under contract. You'll have a bit more understanding about the game engine and about what the strengths and weaknesses are of your team, and you'll still have them in place for a couple of years to really go for it. So yeah, an interesting strategy, and as you mentioned, slightly different to what I've been planning to do.
yeah.
So in terms of the Lions themselves, I mean, clearly at this position in real life, and just the Lions in general, we're never in a never in a possibility of getting a playoff berth, really.
I hear you, man. Everybody can't be New England.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember how we got to this year, but I think we went 6-10 possibly this year in 2010, like maybe in 2011. But I know we're not particularly good, but we weren't particularly too terrible, mainly because we'd spent a lot of money to bring in a lot of veterans, and the hope was that they would be enough to push some of the younger, more talented guys that we had on the roster over the line, really, and it didn't work. But so I guess in terms of my plan for the Lions, it's very much a case of let's rebuild and drop it all down. We've got, I mean, we're lucky in the sense that we've got a good quarterback in Stafford who should be perfectly fine for us. He's locked down for 3 years. We have a really great wide receiver option in Johnson. He's on a year deal, but we'll do everything we can to re-sign him. And then in terms of the key other positions, in terms of running backs, we're pretty well set there, really. We're Smith in there, and Best as well. The issue we've got really is that we've obviously got Sue, and I'll try and think of some of the other guys in terms of the actual lines. We've got Sue and Delmas and Averill, who I think's quite young and could possibly develop into a good player. But apart from that, the lines and the defense and offensive lines themselves, we haven't got a great deal of depth there, or a great deal of elite talent there, which is kind of the problem. So it's kind of a bit of patchwork, really. We've got like the odd on both set of lines in terms of we've got one or two good position players who I'd be like comfortable with them starting for any team in this league, but then we've got other position areas where we've either got a really young guy or we've got a veteran who's possibly past their best, really. But we do have a couple of veterans who still have a lot of really good value. So Peterson as linebacker is probably one of the better linebackers in the league. So he's completely wasted for us because the front line is just awful. But so I guess for us, it's very much a case of, okay, we've got some key marquee pieces that teams will be paying silly amounts of money for the next couple of seasons. But now let's just try and build some of the basic building blocks of a good American football team. That's the main challenge that we've got. So hence we've gone the strategy of let's knock it all down apart from the stuff we want to keep and try and rebuild with that strategy.
Well, I mean, you have one of the best things to possibly have in football, and that's a young quarterback. And Matthew Stafford, 90 intelligence, 86 accuracy. That's a 893 arm. Wow, that is a great young quarterback. And see how long do you have him under contract for 3 years, and your Javon Best, he's a rookie as well, and you have him for the next 4 years. So, I mean, you're in a position where only place you can go from here is up. Do you have do you have an exact plan of attack for what positions that you're going to start off with?
I do, in terms of where I want to go. I don't necessarily want to reveal that because it's going to be probably slightly different to how I think the rest of the league is going to look at in terms of value and positions. So that's kind of where I'm hoping to make use of a gap, really, in terms of where I think the rest of the GMs are going to go with strategy. So we'll see how that plays out. But it may completely foul and we'll be ostracized for being crazy, but we'll try it.
It's always interesting to see how people approach team building. Like I'm I'm kind of a, I guess, traditionalist, and I believe you got to have a strong offensive and defensive line before you can do anything, and that's where all of your money should go. But some people highly value skill positions, and they're willing to have a few mediocre positions in favor of those. So we kind of that'll be what this whole season's about, seeing what everyone's playing style is, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to what type of teams they've got as well. So in terms of where's their real strength, and it's a lot of the teams are quite varied on that, which is at this this moment in time, it's quite interesting because you've got, for example, the Cardinals have got Fitzgerald, who's probably the best wide receiver in the league. How do they utilize him? I'm trying to think. Who else? So the Vikings have got Peterson at a good age, who's an elite running back in here. So I mean, there's all different types of ways you can play this, and it'd be interesting to see what type of strategy and what direction teams go, because I don't think there's going to be one set path that everyone's going to go, oh, okay, we absolutely need the best wide receivers. I hate to compare it back to the CSL and basketball, but for example, in the CSL, when everyone says, oh, to be a really good team in DDS Pro Basketball 3, which I think we're on, you need a great point guard, or you need a good, competent point guard, because the way the engine works. I don't think there's necessarily that with the pro football version. I think you can win on a lot more different strategies, and which makes it really interesting, because the way the teams are positioned, they're going to go different directions based on that.
No, I completely agree with that. Like, everyone kind of just follows the trend, but and it's been really interesting in DDS to still see that there's some teams that refuse to follow that, and they try to bucket. Orlando comes to mind, and the Bucks, I guess, kind of fit that as well. So seeing how all this shakes out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we will see probably whoever wins in the CSFL this year. Whoever wins, we are going to try. I reckon we will see 2 or 3 different copycat teams who go, okay, that's the way to win. We'll follow that. But I mean, it's probably too early to call now, but I think there's going to be lots of different types of teams that will win the CSFL every single year. I don't think there's going to be necessarily one type of team and one type of strategy that's going to dominate over everyone.
And that would be fantastic, because that's what you would wish to happen in the NFL. We haven't seen it lately, but you kind of go into the season every year hoping that there's parity across the league, and that everyone can have a fighting shot in their own unique way, whatever their best strategy happens to be.
Yeah, so it's going to be great, and I don't know about you, but I get really excited when the Sims come out, because there's not that many games. The strategy is so much more important, and you can really analyze other teams and really think about how you can win a game. Basically, you have more time and more to go into that depth, which I love and I'm really enjoying about this league. So should we dive in, talk about some of the week 2 games, because there's been a few interesting results.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it, because I'm pretty surprised too at the way some of these teams shook out. I mean, the top of the standings aren't crazy surprising, except for maybe the Bills. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. It's cool. So I just pulled up the weekly results. Let's just make sure we're on the right. This is a challenge to try and use the HTML. Let's make sure we're on the right week. Here we go. So I guess we kick off at the top here. So we've got the Redskins, who have gone out to a 2-0 now, beat the Chicago Bears, who are, in my opinion, begin the season, I thought the Bears were going to be this really good defensive elite unit. And I mean, they let the Redskins score 27 on them. And they only managed to put up 10 just in the second quarter alone. So, yeah, interesting to see the Redskins have started really well.
I have. You said the Redskins they're 1-1, correct?
I thought they were 2-0. Hang on, let me check. Apologies. Okay, the Redskins have 1-1. Sorry.
No, I mean, that's surprising, because they were selling off pieces.
Yeah, still selling and still managed to beat the Bears, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, some of these, even if you go and look at the wins, it's still a little shocking at how the teams won. No one's kind of winning in the way that you would expect them to. And some of the teams that I thought were powerhouses and wouldn't, would rip through the first half of their schedule have already lost a game. Like I'm a bit surprised that the Ravens and Steelers are only 1-1. I thought both of them would be 2-0 at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd expect the same. Just coming back to the Redskins, I guess in terms of the game against the Bears, the interesting thing was that they had more interceptions than the Bears. In terms of, I mean, I'm just quickly looking at team stats here, but it looks like it was a really tight game, even though the score kind of shows that. For me, it looks like it was the penalties that were the difference.
Yeah, quite a few on the Bears side.
Yeah.
5 penalties for almost 30 yards.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I kind of started peeking at the game analysis. It looks like the Redskins just killed them on first and second down. They didn't even run very many third down plays in the game at all.
No, I mean, interesting because when I looked at the beginning, I had the Bears down as I said, being this elite defensive unit, and it's just not quite working out for them so far this year.
Well, I mean, from what it looks like to me, they're still running a ton of different defenses. So maybe it's just gonna, again, it goes into the engine. We're just always kind of figuring everything out.
Yeah, maybe a bit of refinement there. We'll bring them back in line.
Looks like they played primarily. They only rotated between the 4-3, the 3-4, and the 5-2. So maybe those are defenses that they shouldn't find themselves in. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. So if we move on to probably the next game, which was the Cowboys-Lions. So I managed to squeeze out a 3-point win here. I have no idea how I managed that.
Congratulations.
Let's have a look. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like we did pretty well in terms of the third down efficiency in comparison. There was no interceptions, interesting, in the entire game. So one turnover by the Cowboys. But it looks like just looking at the team stats and the box score itself, it looks like we managed to sort of bring it back in the fourth quarter, really. We were down. Tight game, though. I mean, not a lot to call in terms of difference here. It was just went down to the wire.
Looks like a good old-fashioned shootout to me. I see both quarterbacks had fantastic ratings. Romo with a 109.2 and Stafford with a 106.3. Neither one of them had an interception, which, must be nice. I'd like to know what that feels like.
Interesting that Stafford only got 1 touchdown, though, and Romo managed to get 3 of the, every single touchdown for the Cowboys. So pressure must have come from other units, not from necessarily from Stafford himself, even though he did throw pretty well.
I mean, look at Calvin Johnson, who had a receiving touchdown and apparently ran back a
punt,
either a kick or a punt. So
yeah,
that's a complete game. You got a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, a special teams touchdown. If you got one from the defense, you would have made the cycle, the football version of it.
It shows. I think just that point there, it does show how effective a top tier wide receiver is, though, because you can obviously you put them in different units, don't you? And if they uncatchable and untackleable, it does make it difficult for the defense.
And I did think about that when I went after Andre Johnson as well. One of the first things I read from some of the other leagues' boards was that you always want to, the fastest and the most agile person should be your returner. So, a guy who's 90 in both those areas, you got to get all the points from wherever I can.
Yeah. So should we move on to the next game? In terms of two teams that I would have down as probably being playoff teams this year, the Packers and the Giants. It looks like the Giants managed to squeeze out a result here in the fourth quarter. Again, beating the Packers by 4. Let's have a look at this one. So it looks like Rodgers had a pretty average game.
That's pretty mediocre, actually. 75 passing rating. That's not the bad man Aaron Rodgers, as they call him.
Interesting though, from the Giants' point of view, Manning only completed 5. He was 5 and 5. But, looks like Rosenfels has had the starting position there, so they managed to do it without Manning even starting as well.
Did he? Can you tell, did he get injured, or did we have?
Should we have a look? Let's have a look.
Did we have another case of someone forgot to take off? Play my backups.
That would surely be insult to injury, though, if they managed to beat them with the backups.
I'm insulted. I mean, I'm over here running test sims trying to find plays, and I'm 0-2. They lucked their way into one. So
Eli Manning was out. He had blurred vision. He's out for 1 to 2 weeks. So I'm guessing he got injured during the game. Is my assumption.
So I'm assuming that's Sage Rosenfels. So bravo. I guess he pulled one out of the box, because it's not something he was pretty famous for doing in real life.
No, he's pulled one out of the bag there, definitely, and made the Giants think about probably, made them be a bit more comfortable probably going into next week without Manning. Tough one for the Packers. I mean, I think they're 0-2 now, aren't they, the Packers? I don't think they won the first week either. So I know the GM, Brett, has just got the game, so I don't think he's put a depth chart in yet. So if I were GM's looking, I'd probably wait until week 3 to see what we actually get with the Packers, because I think they've been running just off of a generic depth chart at the minute. So, but 0-2, Giants managed to pull one out there. And I guess flipping over to the next game, the Vikings and the Eagles. The Vikings GM has openly said that he is comfortable with possibly looking at rebuilding. It's no surprise when your quarterback is like 44 years old, or however old however old Brett Favre is in this. I think he might be 41. But interesting to know they comfortably managed to get past the Eagles. It didn't seem like there was much challenge. I'm guessing they managed to rest people in the second half, given they were 26-0 up at half time. What do you take this one?
Well, I'm looking through the box score, and this the game ball might have to go to the kicker for this one. 4 for 4.
Yeah.
Actually, no, 5 for 5.
5 for 5. Yeah.
And that was something that I'm sure you, as one of the moderators and knows the inner workings of the league, I was one of the people behind the scenes going, hey, what about kicking? Kicking is really important. All of our kickers look really bad. This isn't what I remember kickers looking like. So I kind of had a feeling that special teams would be one of those things that could set teams apart. And it's kind of nice seeing that play out, that there's just a lot of different ways to win. And this isn't like, an antiquated techno-world version of a game, that this is a kind of a fully fleshed out engine. And
yeah. And I know we had to do quite a lot of editing of kicker and punter ratings, because when we initially put the rosters together, I think we experienced punters who were only punting about 15 yards because the ratings were that bad. So we had to definitely adjust it quite a lot. So it's good to see that if you do have an elite kicker and an elite punter, it does make a difference, and it does make teams probably focus on that and keep an eye on that going into the off season as well, because I'm sure a lot of these kickers and punters are going to be free agents, because I'd be surprised if some of them have multi-year deals.
Yeah, and just to put that in perspective, the punter for the Vikings averaged 54.9 yards per punt, which would, I think, put him in the top 5 if this was the NFL in punters. They had an excellent day from their. They had I wouldn't even say an elite day from their punter, an elite day from their kicker, and Brett Favre, just went into work and mailed it in, and they were still able to pull out a win. So
just Peterson as well, 10 attempts, 100 yards. So that's not bad from your running back, is it really? So maybe the Vikings aren't done yet then.
Yeah, no, they could. they could definitely be one of those types of teams that can win at the margins, I guess is the expression I'm searching for. They can beat you in the other aspects of the game. Maybe they don't necessarily have to get a perfect game from Brett, which is looking back upon that era of football, which is when I was a kid, that was kind of what they went for at that time. Brett just couldn't help but his body was just breaking down. They couldn't get over the hump.
So we'll see. It's maybe the Vikings, if they start well and are in obviously positive territory, maybe they turn around this season and say, well, we'll go for it, and if Brett Favre retires at the end of the year, so be it, and we'll go again next year. But a solid week 2 for them, definitely. So looking at the next game
before we go on, I just wanted to point out that I'm still going through the box score game analysis, and the Eagles had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 penalties. So I don't know if that's an early record for our league, but there's another way that they lost on the margins.
Yeah, and by obviously that and the Vikings doing well on that side, it makes the difference up, doesn't it?
We only got 3.
Yeah. So if we move on to the next one, the Seahawks and the Falcons. The Falcons coming away with this one in the end by 14 points. Looks like Matt Ryan just had an incredible game. 20 of 25, 280 yards, a rating of 140.
That's almost perfect.
That is almost a perfect game, yeah. Makes a huge difference. In terms of the, you were talking about the penalties, the Seahawks had 5 45 yards, which kind of makes a bit of a difference for them.
And I was reading that there's even in the other leagues they don't really know how much that the player personalities come into play, but I mean if they have any effect on penalties, which I think one of them does, then there you go right there. You're giving up 50 yards in penalties. That's more than enough in my mind for them to possibly have at least gotten 3 to 7 points on you, either whether it put them in field goal range or put them right in the red zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on that as well, I guess we can say that definitely this one was a receiver's game. I mean, White had 5 receptions for 105 yards. On the other side of it, for the Seahawks, Tate had 6 for 102 yards. So it definitely was a receiver's game, this one, I think, rather than an old school slugfest in the middle of the pitch. But it's Falcons coming away with this one. And then if we move on to the Rams and the Panthers are obviously clearly a team that are in rebuild. And no surprise given that they only managed to put up 6 points against the Rams. The Rams probably winning this one quite comfortably in the end, really.
Yeah, nothing surprising about that. The Panthers kind of have already sold away some of their best pieces, so they're going to struggle to score all year. And on top of that, they actually are now leading again in our quick little ranking on who has the most penalties this week.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope, they tied 9.
9 for 98 yards.
Yeah, they won in the yardage. They won in the yardage.
They won the yardage.
Yeah. 88 yards.
I think with this one, the Rams didn't necessarily need to get out of second gear to get one over the Panthers, and probably expected given the Panthers and the direction they were going with anyway in 2010. But it's going to be a long year for them, and I'm guessing they're going to be looking forward to the draft rather than the actual season.
Yeah, their first thing is they're going to probably be looking hard for a quarterback. Who is this? Matt Moore? Yeah, Matt Moore does. I don't know. Doesn't look like the greatest quarterback to me. I know he has really good intangibles, and his arm and intelligence are pretty good, but his accuracy's probably on Vince Young levels. And for some reason, the game just doesn't think he's very skilled as a quarterback. I wonder which area it thinks he's deficient in. It'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
And plus, he's on a 1-year contract, so it's probably good that they're trading assets for picks to try to get their quarterback of the future and are at the least start building the team that they want to eventually put that quarterback into.
Yeah. So I'm probably suggesting we don't necessarily go through all the other games by game, I think. But I guess it's interesting. We can quickly touch on all of them, but we won't go into too much depth. But so I guess if we look at the 49ers, Buccaneers, the 49ers comfortably looks like they managed to pull ahead in this one. I mean, the Buccaneers, I know, are a team that's probably in rebuild as well, but the 49ers have started really well, and Smith looks like an excellent quarterback for them.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty impressed. Like I said, some of these teams are just being new to the game, just had no idea how they would play. And the 49ers are one that kind of surprised me because if I remember back in this time, I don't think they were that good. I could be wrong. I have a friend that's a 49ers fan, and if he was a part of this league, he'd be screaming at me right now. But I don't remember them being all that great of a team in 2010. So
No. And I guess there's some interesting upsets in terms of the rest of the scores in the pack, really. One is probably the Dolphins beating the Ravens by 3 points. I mean, the Ravens are trying to obviously put wins on the board and get into the playoffs this year, I think. The Dolphins clearly are in a rebuild phase at the minute.
Yeah, they've been open about that from day one.
Yeah, but they managed to squeak out a win here against the Ravens, which is an interesting upset, really.
I think the lesson I'm getting out of this is maybe I should just not worry about a playbook for this first season.
Yeah, I mean, some of these scores are crazy. I mean, the Steelers lost again to the Bills, which is interesting. Patriots obviously clearly dominated again. The Chargers managed to get up against the Texans, which was probably expected. The Colts beating the Raiders again is probably expected.
Yeah,
I mean, the Chiefs losing 27-0 to the Jaguars is probably a bit of an upset. I wouldn't have expected that type of score. And the box score doesn't seem to want to load for me, so we can't look at that too much. But that's an interesting one. And then I guess finally we can finish up and talk a little bit more in detail in terms of you guys losing out to the Broncos. I don't know if you've managed to, whilst we've been on air, to have a look and see where things have gone wrong. And we kind of touched on Young and his 3 interceptions. Is there anything else that you've kind of picked up on here? I mean, from just scanning down, I'm guessing that it looks like Orton had a much better game than Young, and Young's just kind of killed the game for you, I think, by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's quarterback play. I'm looking, even if you just look at the rough stats, we moved the ball just as much as they did. We, passed for over 229 yards, even with the interceptions. We averaged, 3.5 yards per rush for more yards than them. Had it was just the 3 turnovers. We lost the turnover battle 3-2.
Yeah, and I think that was just literally that was enough, wasn't it? Really, 8 points. So if you lose that by 1, then that's the difference, really.
And I'm pretty sure, one of them was a pick 6. So that's 2 weeks in a row he's thrown a pick 6.
Yeah, so like I said, there's some big questions for the Titans going into week 3, I think, and we've touched on it. So in terms of how the league looks at the minute, this is how it looks. I mean, looking by division, I guess the National North is complete and utter chaos because the Packers have lost both games, which means that for some reason the Bears, the Lions, and the Vikings actually look like they have a shot at winning the National North, which is a strange one, really, for me to look at. I guess it in terms of flipping down the National South, the Saints have started off really strongly, haven't they? There.
Yeah. No, I'm the Saints. I'm not totally surprised about. They do have a fantastic offense. If anyone hasn't gone to look at Jeremy Shockey's ratings, he just is a monster of a tight end. I'm probably more surprised by the Buffalo Bills in the American East. That's just like when it peaked, like they just still to me don't have a good team. So do they have a veteran GM? Is he one of
They
those?
do, yeah. They have. If you've watched any of the YouTube channels or the Twitch channels, I think it's Sizzling Popcorn is the Twitch channel. The New England Patriots Let's Play. That's the GM of the Bills.
Okay.
So no surprise they're 2-0 really when you think they've got an experienced guy at the helm who can probably maximise the talent they've got far better than we can.
Yeah, he's probably over there laughing at my assertion that the team's not good. It's probably, very good at very specific skills that he needs.
Yeah,
so
I'd imagine so. I mean, a really interesting one though, because you've obviously touched on it there, but obviously the Bills are in same division as the Patriots, and on talent you'd probably say the Patriots have more talent, but that's going to be really interesting to see that battle, I think, through the season, because I think they're going to go neck and neck in that division.
Yeah, I think until the rest of us catch up on the learning curve, he'll definitely be able to out game plan the average DM that he plays, so that'll make up for his talent deficiency. Right, it's the opposite for Rizzo right now. He's still, trying to catch up with general knowledge, but his team is just so talented that as long as he's not actively, standing in their way, he should be able to pull out a good record. Same kind of with the Colts. I think that my division, I already think that 2-game lead that the Colts have on me might be insurmountable, just because their wide receivers and Peyton and their offensive line are just amazing.
Who's an experienced GM as well, I believe, with the Colts.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, they managed to put up 61 points in 2 games, which is incredible, really.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in terms of others, so I know the Chargers GM is an experienced GM and they're 2-0. So interesting in that aspect. I guess
experience is valuable.
yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting because I think if these teams obviously stay where they are, get into the playoffs and play each other, I'm going to be really interested to see how they play against each other. Because whilst we're sitting here and we're complete novices at this game, there are some really talented and experienced GMs in this league, and see them go head to head is going to be fascinating to watch. I really hope, I don't know about you, I really hope that someone comes in and takes the Giants though, as a GM, because they're 2-0 now and they've got some really good talent. I know Manning's out, but I really want someone to pick them up and just run with them, because they could be a really good challenger as well.
Yeah, Manning's out, but apparently Sage Rosenfels is the truth. So
exactly. Exactly. No, going to be interesting to see how this season plays out, and we're obviously only in week 2, so it's still very early days for a lot of these franchises, and we're probably going to see more moves and more ups and downs for teams. But it's been a great start. Interesting to see how it plays out. It's been great to have you on, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks for having you here, and hopefully week 3, quarterback issue sorted for the Titans, and you pull out that first win of the season.
I would really appreciate that, and maybe Vince Young will still have a job.
maybe. If not, then I know there's going to be teams looking to sell some of their quarterbacks who are down the bottom there. So who knows? Maybe you can pull a rabbit out of the hat with that transaction as well.
Yep, and I've proven before the league even started, I'm willing to pay for talent. So I guess I can go ahead and throw it out there now. If you'd like to offer me a quarterback upgrade, then welcome. I'm here to listen.
Exactly. Great. So best of luck. We'll see how we get on. This is the first episode of the CSFL podcast, videocast. We'll be back probably with more insights into the league and into the weekly box scores, and hopefully with some more GMs. And if there is a GM listening to this who wants to join for the next one, then just get in contact with myself or Josh on the forum or one of the admins, and they'll point you in the right direction. And because it would be great to get people on to talk about their team and strategy and get their insights into the league.
All right. Thank you for having me as well. And I hope more people join. That'd be awesome.